Every Sunday, over 6,000 people flock to New York City's Irving Plaza to hear Hillsong pastor Carl Lentz preach. But this isn't your everyday church, and Lentz isn't any ordinary pastor. With sermons that have been likened to rock concerts and style that would make any self-respecting hipster fall to their knees, Carl Lentz has created a new religious movement. Take a look.
He told us why we're here. Don't wonder what your purpose is. You have your purpose. It is to bring healing to the sick, sight to the blind, hope to the hopeless, to provide acceptance for those that have been maligned and abused and ostracized by everybody else. Touch the untouchables. Bring hope to those that won't get it any other way. What am I supposed to do? Take over your neighborhood, block by block, human by human, day by day. Wake up every day and say, Lord, here I am. Use me. I know you're not looking for perfect people. You're looking for available ones. Lord, I will go.
And I'm thrilled now to be joined by Hillsong NYC pastor Carl Lentz. Welcome.
Pleasure to be here,
We're
sir.
thrilled to have you. I have so much I want to ask you, but I'm going to start with a question you wanted to talk about. This is on Twitter. You tweeted us saying, at HuffPost Live, looking forward to it. We're talking about basketball only, right?
Right.
Knicks, you love them. Why do you love the Knicks?
Well, it's a miracle because I grew up in Chicago.
Right.
So I grew up loving the Bulls, but when we moved here, I just figured, if we're going to be true New Yorkers, we gotta love the Knicks. So I have over the years we've been here, I'm an orange and blue guy. Love the Knicks. They're doing so well this year. They're easy to love.
I was just gonna say it's convenient. They're doing so well after a long time.
Yeah.
So much to talk about. You talk about New York. I know Hillsong started in Australia.
Yeah.
How did you bring it to New York? Why did you bring it to New York?
Well, so my pastors, who you should have on here, they're fantastic. Brian and Bobby Houston. They started a church in Australia that was just for, I think, people like me. And I went over there for Bible college when I was like 20 years old. And I fell in love with it. And over the years of just working in churches, years later, Brian, my pastor, who's never done anything in America, he just really felt like the time was right to do something in New York. So we just decided to, give it a shot.
And when you say people like me, what does that mean? You said
like us.
Like us.
I think. How old are you?
29.
Oh, man. 35. I think there's a lot of people who really have a heart after something deeper.
Yeah.
But church doesn't cut it. Like, typically, if I invite someone to church, they're not like, oh, I so want to come. That sounds awesome.
Right.
Because people have this preconceived notion of what it is. And I think, when I say guys like us, I think a church that will let you come in as you are and hear. Like, our church isn't trying to change anybody.
Right.
We're trying to give people what we believe to be the truth, but you have an opportunity to learn, to hear, to be taught at your own pace. You're not going to be judged either way.
I have to tell you, I looked at some of the videos online. I spent thinking that I would spend 20 minutes, maybe 15, just at the beginning, and 2 hours later, I was still watching the videos. I mean, because they are so compelling, and I want to talk about all that, but first tell us, what were you doing before all this?
I don't know, a whole lot of nothing. I think I played basketball. In my mind, I'm still a good player, but in reality, I'm 35 years old, father of 3. And so I think my life trajectory was headed towards, I don't know what I was going to do. I love ball, love playing. So I went to NC State, and while I was there, I just really started to dig into my faith a little bit, or lack thereof.
Yeah.
And so right in the middle of my sophomore year in college, about 19, 20 years old, I feel like I had an awakening of sorts, and that's what began my journey. So I've really only ever done this.
That's amazing.
I had a passion to do like criminal justice.
Yeah.
And coach, which initially, ironically, I guess now, both those elements are in what I'm doing, because preaching and leading is kind of coaching, because you deal with people, and criminal justice really is inherently about injustice. So I believe our church is about that too. So I'm kind of doing what I thought I was going to do, just in a different way.
And obviously everyone, has certain periods in their life where they try different things. I know that you were living in LA. You worked as a salesman for a couple companies.
One.
Gucci.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to work for one, you should work for Gucci.
Right. It was funny. I didn't get any discounts. I literally just held the door for people as they walked in. So it was the best way to see LA. I'll promise you that. But yes, I did a couple different things, and I went on it. I think it's good for people. Our country is often about religion, meaning what you were given. Like, you're Jewish, you're Christian.
Yeah.
I had parents that allowed me to search that for myself.
Yeah.
And so what we promote at our church is a relationship. Religion is what you have to do. Relationship is what you choose to do. And I chose this. I love it.
And that makes sense to me. I mean, it resonates with me. And speaking of religion, here at HuffPost Religion, we often do stories about the youth and younger people getting less and less interested in religion. It's some of what you were talking about at the beginning. For example, when we talk about engaging people, like you, like me, you were saying you don't want to change people. How do you engage people, especially the youth, people who might be apathetic?
Yeah, well, I read HuffPost all the time. Zach Hogue is one of your religion writers, and I love reading what he writes. I think there's a void of kindness in New York City, and there's a void of people who want to serve. So our job as Christians is to love people as we've been loved, which was unconditionally, for free. So it makes it really easy. I often tell our church, if you're just mildly kind in this city, people will think you're like a saint. Like one time I opened the door for a lady, she's like, "Why would you do that?" I'm like, "This is what you do. Like, this is not like, I'm not like a good person for opening the door."
No, we get so jaded because we're accustomed to just, shuffling by and stuff.
Right. And so for us, engaging our city is easy if you know God's love that's engaged you freely. So you shouldn't have any problem in New York walking around looking for ways to help people. I think it's easier than people think.
And when we talk about religious literacy, just knowing about religions, I've studied about religions, and I have to be honest with you, I think I'm faithful in the sense that I have faith, I believe in God, but when it comes to organized religion and other religions, it's not just that I don't know much, but it's almost like I don't buy into it. I'm just speaking freely. How do you change this notion of the lack of religious literacy?
We talk about Jesus a lot because Jesus actually came to kind of almost disprove and abolish religion. So when Jesus showed up on the planet, religion was the only way. And Jesus basically said, "I am the religion. You can't live up to God. You can't work your way up to him." So I don't even get into religious stuff. I always ask people, do you know Jesus? What do you think about him? Even atheists would say, yeah, he was real. Whether he's the Son of God, that's up to other people. But it's really easy to differentiate between Jesus and religion.
So when we talk about Jesus, how do you personally relate to Jesus?
Well, for me, I feel like it's a journey. If you ever find somebody that says they've found God, I think that's an interesting. I think like I've been married for 10 years, for instance, to my beautiful wife, who I love. She's my best friend. We make out all the time.
As you should.
I feel like 10 years into marriage, I'm just getting to know her. Yeah. That's how I feel about Jesus. I feel like every day I wake up, there's an opportunity for me to know a little bit more about him and to walk with him, and it's a relationship with God. And that freaks people out because they don't, it can sound kind of super spiro or weird, but I'm okay with that because I'm a weird guy in general. I mean, but when I talk about Jesus to people, I just say, don't write off who he is because of what you've known previously.
Right.
Give this a look. Let me show you what's been said. Let me show you what these claims are. Then do with it what you will.
So in any relationship, I like how you kind of equated that. In any relationship, there's drama, there's misunderstanding, misconceptions, and you say you feel like it's always evolving.
Yeah.
Are there times when the relationship isn't as good as it is at other times?
Well, there's a difference between like feeling-based Christianity and then what I believe to be real Christianity, which is feelings are sometimes it doesn't matter how I feel. Like, so for instance, our culture says, I'm in love or I fell out of love.
Right.
Hollywood loves that. We fell out of love.
Yeah.
You don't fall in and out of love. You choose it. Right. So on my bad days when I pray and stuff doesn't get answered, or I wake up and I'm like, really? Like I don't even feel like I have faith today. Those are the days that you choose anyway. So I do think it's like a lot of our generation is like, okay, if I get Jesus, do I get a better job? And does stuff happen right? No. What happened right was Jesus. You got him. So in New York, a lot of bad stuff can happen to you. We believe it doesn't have to change what comes through you.
Yeah.
So you can have a shaky world around you, but for me, I feel like I'm secure in who he is.
As you break this down, I have to tell you, what people love about you, and I think what resonates, is that you make this also accessible, and you make it make sense. And I'm not the only one saying that, and I just met you.
Well,
it's true, man. Justin Bieber's manager, Scooter Brown, actually had this to say about you in this vein in Details magazine. It was a profile from earlier this year. He said, Lentz has that X factor, that thing you're born with that makes people gravitate towards you. I'm a proud practicing Jew, but you don't have to be Christian to be moved by Carl's words and his passion. What do you attribute that to?
Well, I love Scooter. He's one of my closest friends, and he's like a for real Jewish guy. And typically, we're not supposed to get along.
Yeah.
And I think the first thing I tell people is we're not making this relatable. Jesus is relatable. We're not making it cool. Like when people say that, I cringe because it's like, if we can get out of the way more, and churches often are the biggest barrier to people finding out who God is. Like most people, they think they have a problem with God. No, they got hurt or abused or misled by a church. So for me, Jesus was the ultimate relatable person walking this earth. He related to lepers and he related to kings. So I don't think there's anybody in this world that doesn't have the right to at least hear this for what it is. And Scooter's good at, we have good talks all the time. Like he has his beliefs, I have mine. We're not trying to change each other,
right.
But our friendship enables us to have conversations, dialogue.
And you know, like within Judaism and
You're great at this,
Christianity.
by the way.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah.
Well, but in all seriousness,
You do this for a living.
I'm trying to. Don't tell them. I have bigger plans. No, I'm kidding. Here's the thing. I feel sometimes that I think about religion. I want to be religious. I know you said you're not trying or aiming to make it relatable, but I then get very cynical. I don't know if that's the same thing about New York. You know, we're so cynical, we're so jaded. But I don't know, what would you say to someone like me, people like me, there are people out there who
I
just
would say
don't...
you should be cynical. Like, why wouldn't you be? There's so much fraud equity that I'm surprised when people do trust up front. Like in my generation has great opportunity, but we also have a responsibility to be able to let people have doubts because there are a lot of people who are disingenuous and there is room for skepticism. And I would just say it's okay. Like I think, especially with the church organization as a whole, people should be disenfranchised with it. But we're going to be here forever, and we're going to keep on showing up. And I often like to tell people our church is wildly overrated, wildly.
Why do you say that?
But the message that we preach is wildly underrated and underheard. Because our church, if you came in, I don't think you'd be like, wow, this is spectacular. First of all, there's a lot of great churches in our city, and who should be sitting here are the thousands of people that make our church work. Sometimes as a pastor, you're like an NFL quarterback. You get too much credit when it goes right, too much blame when it goes wrong.
Of course.
But I represent thousands of faithful, ordinary people who just love Jesus and serve the city. So our church, there's nothing to it. Like you're not gonna walk in and be like, wow, this is great. But there's supernatural power there.
And what's the most underrated thing about the message? Just very quickly, that thing that you were talking about.
God's love, hands down, and God's grace. Because like I'm not changing because I have to. I'm changing every day because I want to. And God's grace is so good that if people can just take a moment and just hear the message of it. When I say grace, I mean favor and mercy and forgiveness, stuff that you don't deserve but you get it anyway. Like most people try to fix themselves and then go to God. Why would you do that? Jesus said, you come exactly as you are, and my grace will change you. And religion in our city points a lot of fingers. You're bad, you're this. I don't believe that's what we do.
Well, speaking of God's grace, and speaking of change, you know, you say how people change. We actually had, as you know, you say it's overrated. We had, you have a lot of celebrity followings. We actually had rapper Ja Rule, who was here on this set. He was on the couch. I know you saw the interview because we were chatting about it in October. And this is what he said about how Hillsong helped him find God again. Take a look.
I go into a church right here in the city, in Irving Plaza. It's called Hillsong. And they have a pastor there named Lentz. And from the moment I walked in the church, I said, okay, this is where they mean come as you are. They turn a club into a church on Sunday.
Well, word?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that really hit me like, okay, so, all right, this is very different. Let me go see what this is about. Then I started looking around in the crowd, in the audience, and I see like skater kids in the back with their skateboards and their skate gear in the back, you know. Dudes over here that look like they just came off of 145th, like, yo, Poppy, I got that thing, you know, it was a real eclectic group of people. It was different.
And really come as you are.
And really come as you are.
So it was different, really come as you are. He's describing the diversity. Why did you attract all those people, man?
Well, Jeff is awesome. Like there was a period there for like where every song he was doing, him and I think it was Ashanti. Like it was really cool to see him in there. But I think Jeff is a perfect example of a guy that's got some scars. And our church only works for people with scars. Like we always say, the only people who don't fit in are those who are perfect. So if you're perfect, you're going to hate who we are. But like for our church, we're not going to, we'd never beat around the bush on the truth, but there's an opportunity for you to come at your own pace.
So people come as they are because it seems to me like you tell it like it is.
I try to. I think I'm growing as a communicator. I got a lot of room to grow, but I'm doing my best to communicate it well.
Well, I have a feeling it's working for you, man. I just want to share with you, I'm sure you've seen this, Justin Bieber tweeting saying, "Love to my guy, Carl Lentz, New York, for the amazing sermon at church this morning. Love you, man. I broke down today. Thank you." Is that something that happens often, people like Bieber breaking down?
I think people like me break down. So I always warn people up front, I am absolutely emotionally unstable because when I'm preaching, I'm preaching stuff that matters to me. So Justin, my best friend, Judah Smith, who runs the church in Seattle, that's Justin's pastor, and I've gotten to know Justin through him. And I think Justin enjoyed just being able to be a regular guy. Like in the media spotlight on people like him is so harsh that, like, can you imagine growing up never having a chance to make your mistakes in private? Every mistake he's ever made, is, and a lot of times it's not even true.
Yeah.
But I think Justin just enjoyed breathing and hearing about this. And sometimes the first, I love, New Yorkers are so tough. Like, they come into our church. And
They want to be tough.
Yeah, no, we're not tough. Nobody's tough. Like, are you kidding me? Like, tough is a lady named Arlene in my church, who's a multiple cancer survivor, who refuses, like, double mastectomy, beautiful as they come. She's tough. But when I see guys come in with these facades, like, I don't need God, I don't need anything, please believe. You keep coming long enough, and you're going to find out that, there's something different going on in here.
So when we talk about the different things going on in there, and we talk about people wanting to be tough or giving people a tough time, I know, and I've seen, I'm sure it happens, people looking at all these celebrities coming around you, flocking around you, and people get skeptical, people get jealous, and they go, he must be some sort of marketing gig. Like, some corporation must have something all over this.
I wish. I'd have a better beanie on than an H&M beanie. But yeah.
Hey, man, I love H&M.
Me too.
I think it's
no offense, H&M, free stuff.
We'll talk fashion later. Too much to discuss, but I mean, is it a coincidence? Do you think it's natural? It's just
Well, I know what you mean by followers, but I don't think people are coming for me at all. Like I said, sometimes I'm going to be the visual piece of our church, but these people love Jesus. I happen to run this church. So I think when people accuse us of weird motives, which happens, that's all right. Like, the good thing about having nothing to hide is that you hide nothing.
Right.
So we don't need anybody's money, and we don't need anybody's fame. We don't need anybody's influence. So celebrities, like, our church has a passion to reach everybody in this city.
Right.
I laugh when people will scoff at the celebrity stuff, because I'm like, what do you want us to do? You're okay with us giving a blanket to a homeless man, but should we not allow someone who has worldly fame to come in here and have the privacy to worship? It's crazy. So when people make criticism is always good, because it's either true and you can change, or it's false and you grow more secure in what you're doing. So I hear that often, because people just can't believe we actually have genuine motives. And
man, I'm listening to you talk. I'm trying to think of the next question I'm going to ask, and I'm thinking, shit, I got to be taking notes. I'm like, I'll just watch this back. But for real, I mean, you have a real fluidity, and I want to actually just share another clip of you in action at Hillsong, just to give people a sense.
This is embarrassing. It's like a video selfie.
Let's check this out.
Be patient with each person. What? I didn't even know that was in there. That's annoying. Everybody? I'm going to check some commentary to make sure that doesn't mean everybody. Be attentive to individual needs. That's interesting. Isn't that cool? That's why some churches want us to give blanket answers on huge issues. Well, my Bible says be attentive to individual needs. That's why we're not going to make polarizing political statements about certain things in our Christian community right now. No matter who says what, we won't be pressured into giving blanket statements to individual needs. Never.
Never. Speaking of diversity, New York City, one thing that is polarizing to some communities, especially within religion, is homosexuality and the debate around it. I mean, how do you balance those two things? I mean, are people of all sexual orientations welcome, and how do you see that?
Absolutely. I think what I was referring to there was, some people will be like, you need to you need to answer our questions about the homosexuality issue. And I always say, I do, you just don't like my answers. And here's exactly what I mean by that. Some media wants us to use our pulpit to have a soapbox for social issues. I don't believe that's our job. I don't believe Jesus did that. You go look at what Jesus did. He was always talking about the heart of an individual and the soul of a person, not these symptomatic societal problems. And people hate that, because a lot of churches are about what they're against. We're about what we're for. And when it comes to people's sexuality, I don't want to use a public forum to talk about private things, because how in the world can you have a dialogue? How in the world can I hear your story? How in the world can someone have a question? So if I stand up in a pulpit and I just start railing at something or make a statement in a newspaper about something, I believe it's insensitive to the journey that people are walking on, and our church is going to protect people no matter where you're from, no matter what you carry, no matter what kind of orientation you feel like is your lane of life to run in. I want to have a conversation about it. We have a stance on love, and we have conversations about everything else.
Well, I love that, and that makes sense to me, because when you say, you have a stance on love and you're talking about hearts and souls, I often see, people want to focus on homosexuality and the gay marriage issue and whether they should be allowed to get married. And a lot of homosexual couples are looking around saying, I just love this person with all my heart and soul, so I'm looking for some support. Do you feel like you're not in a position to give them support on that issue, or do you feel like it's just not your lane?
It's not my job to be people's judge and jury. If I sat down with a homosexual couple and they asked me what I thought about their relationship, I would tell them, and it would be at their table, and it would be our business. But their situation is different than the next situation, and often people get these two words mixed up, acceptance and approval. Like, I don't necessarily, if someone comes in my church, I don't have to approve of every single thing in their life, because that's not my job. I'm not God. But my job is to accept you as I have been accepted with everything in my life. God accepted me. So acceptance and approval, we draw a really cool line in there, because it's like, look, I'm not going to tell you. There's a lot of people who will come into our church, leave and go, no thanks. I don't want to change I don't want to live, I don't want to believe that. And I say, good for you, that's your job. You have to answer to God for your life, not me. So why is this on me? So people are always like, what do you think about homosexuality? I'm like, I love my wife, I'm married. You're asking the wrong guy. But that's just to be funny. But I do believe it's such a sensitive issue. I have gay friends, I have people that I love that are right in the thick of that kind of debate. And I just refuse to ostracize people any longer. I hate it. I think that there's been so much hate and so much bigotry and so much insensitivity that I'm done with that. And so the people who criticize us for it, I like making those people mad, because
I hear you.
They are who they are.
And I think if we focus on love, it'll all fix itself out. If all people just focus on love, I at least that's my personal belief. I do want
so you know, before you go, Jesus said to do two things. He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. And then he said, number two, love your neighbor.
Love your neighbor. I actually saw, I was just going to go to this, but
with the inference being, if you love your neighbor, there's so much room to talk about stuff. But people want to yell with no love.
I hear you, and I think that's the perfect message to end on. And rather than end on it here, why not just show this? This is you with Jay-Z. There you have it. And you're wearing that shirt.
That was our Illuminati meeting.
Let's end on that. It was an Illuminati meeting, but you are wearing the Love Thy Neighbor. What a perfect message to end on. Such a pleasure to meet you, my man. Such a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Much more coming up here at HuffPost Live. You want to find out more about what Carl's up to, check it out in the resource well. Keep the comments coming.